To all the men showing up, even when life feels heavy. To the men carrying pressure no one sees. To the men trying to provide, lead and hold it all together. To the men who are tired, stressed, disconnected, or quietly struggling behind the scenes. This is your reminder. You are not alone. You don't need to have all the answers, to wait until you hit breaking point, and you don't need to carry everything in silence. This Men's Health Week, we're opening up honest conversations about what it really means to be a man in today's world, with this one simple message. Men don't need more information, they need better spaces to talk. This series is hosted on the Upside podcast, powered by the Happiness Co Foundation and supported by Business News. The views shared by our guests are their own and may not always reflect the views of the Happiness Co Foundation. But what they do is to help create the conversations we believe more men need access to. Welcome to the Men's Health Project series.
We're here, the three awesome men from the Happiness Group. We're here today to have a bit of a convo, just hanging with the bros. We're celebrating Men's Health Month through the foundation, and there are three themes, and those three themes I think we could explore today, just what it means to us as individuals.
I'm Slade, and I work here alongside the team at Happiness Co. Doing some work for the foundation as well as the co. My background is a whole load of things within the space of FIFO and men's work, content creation, a lot of various things that I've done over the years. But I find myself nowadays and this season is really focusing on mental health within the FIFO space, and Happiness Co is a stepping stone towards that. So to give my time and energy and impact into this space, it's a big part of my life.
Welcome.
I could keep talking, but I'm really grateful to be here and to have these conversations.
Yeah, I'm Barry Hamilton. I worked in several positions now with the co. But my project at the moment is our Road to Happiness project, which is taking mental health programs to the regions for communities, organisations, charities, not-for-profits, etc., for those people who may not have access to mental health programs, either because of their location or their inability to be able to fund them. Really enjoying a new chapter in my season, if you like. Or a new season in my chapter, I'm not sure which way that goes. Working with young kids in schools, whilst terrifying, is also incredibly satisfying and I guess builds upon my general philosophy that education around mental health and wellbeing should start at a very young age. And so being able to do that through the Road to Happiness is self-fulfilling for me, and seeing the kids as well.
Yeah, Baz, thanks, and Slade as well. Welcome. Mo Sorzia, I'm responsible for our partnerships and social impact at Happiness Co Foundation, and I also am grateful for the opportunities to be one of the presenters for Happiness Co, of which the major piece at the present moment is with BHP in Newman, where we're providing education, awareness and support for supervisors, superintendents, the workforce, as well as the community. And this month in particular, there's quite a bit happening there, supporting that cohort. So pleased to be at the vanguard of that, and sharing not only our message to that community, but also the whole notion of providing support and connection specifically for the community. So thank you. So the three themes for Men's Health Month are advocacy, connection, and education. That sort of sets the foundation for this conversation today, and it is definitely an unscripted conversation. It could go anywhere, and I think that's cool because one of the things I find really interesting when I'm with mates and different groups of mates, which I've been fortunate enough to develop, and I will say nurture, because I want to get back to that whole notion of nurturing mateship or friendship, because us blokes don't necessarily do it well. And the older you get, it becomes more and more potentially problematic insofar as isolating yourself from community. But the question I posed, and it was to a men's walking group a couple of Saturdays back, and that was a whole notion of what makes you happy. And it really, for a couple of the guys in particular, it really stopped them in their tracks. And they said, geez, Mo, it's one of those questions, is it? And I said, well, you're not going to have a conversation with Mo without it being authentic, or at least that, because the question around that was, so Mo, what do you do? And I started to explain about the Happiness Co Foundation. So yeah, I thought we might start with that. What makes you happy?
I think it's so important for me to understand values and then connect what I value to what makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
I think happiness for me is a feeling. It's not an end goal. So what makes me happy? Definitely connection being one of them, but also a sense of purpose, of like being on a mission. For example, with this is part of this chapter, the podcast. It's part of a mission that gives me a sense of purpose, a sense of feeling of accomplishment. And problems arise with it.
And being able to tap into the wealth of knowledge, experience, etc., that you bring to the table around technology.
Exactly. And I think the polarity of happiness is some sort of negative emotion. And I think being able to, for example, challenge could be the opposite of happiness. It's a challenge sometimes, working with the podcast, which helps bring happiness, because I can feel that challenge.
I often state very clearly the opposite to happy is sad. Okay, they're almost juxtaposed to each other, and then even more so, the road from sad to happy. What does that look like? And in some situations, speak to the road from grief to hope. So if you look at the polarity, which you mentioned, the polarities of those two notions or constructs. So when you're sad, it's very, very, very challenging to be happy. To step out of being in that sad space to be happy, and again, research clearly indicates that several days, in fact 2 weeks of feeling sad, not being happy, the opposite of, potentially can lead to or be led to to depression. So it's okay to be sad a couple of days, a week, etc., or whatever it might be. However you look at it, and let's not get, I suppose, bedded down into those nuances. It really is, to your point of a season, a journey. And every day individuals are on that journey. And every day life presents itself in different ways. So as part of that, it's how we react and respond and allow that life to be an impact on yourself and or on those people around you. So that's pretty well the way I look at it. As I mentioned beforehand, I do at times refer to that polarity, and the midpoint being connection.
Yeah.
So just leaving it at that as as a thought.
And Mo, your comment around, whether it's our life, or we look at it as a day-by-day basis, for me, and I think this has only just occurred relatively recently, is even breaking that day down into smaller parts. Whether it's a morning or an afternoon, or some days it's almost hour by hour, so that I don't get bogged down into a feeling early in the day that may, whether it be a anger or frustration or one of those type of emotions. I think we need to be able to recognise we're in those spots, for want of a better word, and taking an action. And so for me, looking at that in smaller chunks through the day has been helpful for me.
I like to go micro view of things like that, break the day down into smaller pieces, but then also zoom out as well. So it's the macro lens for me helps me. I could see as this hour has been a bit clunky. I haven't been too happy. Or that could turn into this day hasn't been great, and then the week, and then the month, and so forth. But when I macro view it and I look at like a graph, like the trend of happiness, the trend of contentment, the trend of connection, I can then see if it's an upward trend over the last month. Okay. Oh, let's keep going. Let's keep following that path. If something isn't right or it's a little bit rocky, what do I need to look at from a micro view to then make some adjustments?
I think the challenge, though, is if we talk about having a happy life, which is, I guess, ultimately what we should be aiming to do, for some, the concept of a happy life just seems too big. What am I going to be happy all the time? No, of course not. Well, how can then I have a happy life? And so, whilst ultimately that might be our aim, I feel like if I can have a happy hour, happy morning, happy afternoon, happy day, happy week, as you're saying, it's a trend. But I feel, and I guess everyone's different, Slade. But for me, if we talk at a very high level around having a happy life, I think for some that's quite scary.
Yeah, absolutely, and for individuals in particular, and we know, in the workplace, 1 in 4 people feel lonely in the workplace. So if you take that out to the broader community, how do you then go from that notion of being or feeling lonely and disconnected, isolated, etc., to then being connected, to stepping into some of the amazing activations that are being provided by the Happiness Co, supporting men's health over the next 4 weeks. And again, I've reflected on this. Back to the walking group of men, asking the question, what makes you happy? But for men to actually rock up to a men's walking group or to a hike, I mean, Slade and I, we've had conversations around the FIFO piece and supporting FIFO men in particular that you're creating. Getting men to turn up, is challenging. Yeah. I'd love to lean into that because again, we can provide so much education, awareness, and talking of connectivity and and notions of that and how that looks like, and as I said, providing activations. But if men are sad, they're not seeing life, in a purposeful, meaningful way. They're not exploring those options and opportunities. What are we doing? What do we need to do differently? And across the age demographic here around this table, it'd be interesting to lean in on that a little bit. If I may start with you, Slade. Based on that FIFO piece, and getting men to connect while off swing. What does that look like? What are you doing to move that forward?
I think there's a lot there, right? Mm-hmm. If I break it down into what can we do, organisational level, company level, then there's also the personal level. From a leader's point of view, from a company point of view, there's the basic duty of care to show up and support workers, but I don't think it's not really putting the human first as much from man to man in the context of men's health. So bringing it to a personal level, as man to man, no matter what the role is within company, life, whatever it is, helping, honestly, having a bit of tough love sometimes doesn't always hurt. As in, hey man, I know you're feeling sad. We're all aware that things aren't going so well, but how about, like, I'm going to push you to come out and let's go for a hike. Let's go to the gym. Let's go for the walk. I think we all know what's good for us at our core. Like, I should be doing that thing, not because some Instagram thing told us or anybody else told us. I know in my heart that I need to go for the walk. I need to connect with others. And having that level of accountability from friends, from family, from colleagues, that starts with as an audience, it starts with you. It starts with us. It starts with one person saying and suggesting, hey, I think this would be good for you, but also for me. Let's connect. And it is really simple. In a logical sense, if we remove the emotion for a second, in a logical sense, it's a very simple thing to go out and just connect. Go for the walk, go for the gym session. But because we tend as men to react to things out of emotion, I don't feel like doing it. But I know I should be doing it, but I don't feel like it. So I guess to summarize all of that, it's the accountability from friends, family, mates, and then the responsibility of responding to the emotion. Okay, that's what I'm feeling, but what do I do with that now? How can we see our emotions as almost like a data point? Okay, that's what it is. I'm going to feel it, and I'm going to work through that. And what do I do with that now? It's
alrighty. Well, we've had a couple of conversations around lone wolfing. All right, which then actually works in opposition to a large chunk of what you've just said. In other words, reaching out to someone, that person then doesn't accept the invitation, and it's like, well, what do you do with that? How do you go from that to really pushing the barrow to that individual, to the point where you know that individual struggling, you know that individual is his behaviour has changed, there's been a significant shift. To your point of tough love, bringing the horse, to the water, but is one thing, but enabling the individual horse, in this case here, to drink from that, to be involved, to get the benefit out of it. When an individual is struggling, to be connected, it really is challenging, super challenging. I recall, one day where 3 mates invited me to play golf. I could hardly get out of bed. I was struggling that much. So for me to actually then play golf, which was a commitment level to 3 mates, 18 holes, was a massive amount of time, effort, energy. And I reflect on it, quite often. I did that. Probably the worst game of golf. Because at that time, I was struggling with the notion that I was unemployed. I'd recently been made redundant at age 50. So I had time in my hands, which was great. It was very generous of my mates to take me out. But all I could think of was, I'm not worthy. I'm not going to be employed. While I'm trying to focus on a bloody golf ball. So with all the good intention, being able to create that space in that situation, golf day, etc., sitting back at the end of it, having drinks, etc., I felt so detached, so isolated, but yet I had 3 of my best mates at the time. The issue was they didn't know. They didn't know how much I was struggling at that time. And that, reflecting on it again, is, well, how do we crack that? How do we be in that situation with your mates to be able to, basically say, hey, I'm struggling here. Or one better, that those 3 mates actually go, hey, Mo's not his normal self. How do we change that conversation to make Mo in that situation feel like he was seen? Because I wasn't seen at that moment.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I'm kind of reflecting on my journey since my breakdown and the people around me and my connection with them. I think there's 2 there's probably more, but two kind of approaches. One is the long-term need for education for young boys, and the work that we're doing in schools to talk about that. And then your initial question, Mo, around how do we get to those men? For me, and I can only speak on my behalf, I guess when you're brought up in a particular way around emotions generally, and men's handling of those emotions, I think I'm probably typical of most people my age around big boys don't cry, don't share your emotions. Whilst that was never explicitly said, it was certainly modelled, and that was the behaviour. And so I think for me, I won't go to a session down the beach for a cold nips or to a walk along for a hike or something. It's just not what I want to do. But within the context of a mental health chat, if I don't think that was the reason for it, then that's more likely to get me along. So it's a little bit like exercise for me. I don't want to go to a gym, but if I was playing volleyball down the beach with a whole heap of mates, still getting exercise, I'm more likely to participate in that, if that makes sense. So I think rather than having face-to-face discussions around mental health, I feel like men prefer a side-by-side chat around mental health, and whether that's around the barbecue, tossing a sausage. It doesn't answer your question, Mo, around how do your mates know you're down or have the courage to ask you, and it doesn't address your point around, I guess, being comfortable in telling your mates or asking your mates for help. But I feel like the environment is what we need to address first, and that again comes from education.
Slade, you previously mentioned corporates and duty of care, etc. Yes, and there is that obligation for organisations to support their employees, and a large chunk of what we do through the Co in particular is to provide the framework around the notion of the science of happiness, underpinned by the psychology of positive psychology. So we're fortunate now, 25, 30 years into this whole space, that if you want men's work, or people work, or people care work, or community care work, just people, that there is science that supports it, which is awesome, but it's still developing. So the construct of age and toughen up and being a bloke and all of the above. You as a young man in today's community and supporting men, you're at a point in your life where you can influence, and you've got the tools in your toolkit to be able to influence, especially through social media. If I can take you back to a situation when you weren't coping, okay? What in particular was it that you thought, there's a moment there that you thought, I'm not doing this isn't working for me, and in fact you went pretty well to the extremes of non-acceptable behaviour in community to yourself, to whatever that looks like. And the great thing about this environment, of course, is that we can splice and dice and just go, nah, thanks, but I don't want to speak to that.
Of course.
So I think there are stories here that we need to share. Yeah. I mean, that story about golf, I mean, I've got so many, but that was just one moment where, three of my best mates at the time, we travelled together and the whole thing, that was the ideal opportunity for those three mates to go, something's not quite right here. Yeah. Within a very short period of time, prior to that, it had escalated to almost self-harm, definite suicide ideation. All right, so for three of my best mates not to know that, and probably to this date still not know that, but yet how impactful that was, that they literally dragged me out, but they didn't. I made the conscious decision to actually get in the car, to drive there. I mean, it was an absolute cluster. Just picking out a club, having the clarity of mind to pick out a club. What do I do with this thing? While there are so many thoughts happening in their head at the time, you know, before the meds, before the talk therapy, you know, this whole notion of going to exercise, great. To your point, that probably wasn't the best exercise for me. Going on a walk with a mate side by side, sharing it, which we do a lot more now.
Yeah.
A better mode, absolutely. And then throwing yourself into the water.
Yeah.
You know, finding what that is.
It's interesting, Mo, reflecting on your story around redundancy and obviously me losing my job in 2019, resulting in me having my breakdown. And so the cause of our distress or discontent is similar, and I think it's around losing purpose, it's around losing a whole heap of things. But I think what for me was really interesting, so from my breakdown, anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide, the thing that I find the most interesting is that overall the response from people around me was, oh my God, really? I was so surprised. No one had really seen it coming. And we hear that story a lot with people that have been taken their life through suicide, that people around them go, we had no idea. And so it's an interesting, you know, people just kind of thought I was stressed, but generally the happy sort of guy. Although comparatively now I look back and I wasn't anywhere near as happy as I am now or displaying that. But I think that was the overall comment was, oh my God, did you hear Barry had a breakdown and, you know, his anxiety, depression, thoughts of suicide? There was general shock around that. And so, you know, it begs the question, is that because I'm masking or because people aren't all that in tune with what that looks like? And I don't know the answer to that.
Well, to your point of masking, absolutely. And again, we can only speak on behalf of men, identify as such. But yeah, there are multiple masks that we wear. And as we can appreciate, you become adapt to wearing that mask.
Yep.
And if that's mask of I'm a superhero, or, you know, I'm the Joker, or, you know, and there are multiple different masks, and we layer so many different masks. The piece around that, which I'd like to, you know, to throw in, is the ability to take that mask off. Okay, at the end of the day or during the day, back to episodes, during the day, to just be yourself, just throw out the mask, and but first and foremost, self-identifying that you are, and this is a protective mechanism. And why is it the case? You know, why are you masking up here? What is it that you don't want to show? And that leads into the whole notion of authenticity and being vulnerable. But what is it that you don't want to show?
Yeah, and I use this in a lot of our presentations, Mo, that having a breakdown or getting to that point, low point in my life, I had no choice. There was no mask then. It was raw. It was real. There was no choice around wearing a mask because I was incapable of actually wearing one. But very often in my sessions, I share my story, as raw as it is and as painful as it was. And I always finish by saying, I'm not telling this story for sympathy. I'm telling this story because in most cases, we don't make changes to our life until such time as we hit a low point. So it might be the guy that's had the heart attack. He doesn't stop smoking and drinking till he's laying in his hospital bed. He knew that smoking was bad for him. He knew that lack of exercise was no good. Continued to do those things and then had the heart attack. And so for me, sharing my story around the breakdown is simply around going, don't wait for that moment in your life to take that mask off. Make a decision today to be a little bit more vulnerable, to share your emotions with others, to seek support and friendship and guidance, counselling from your mates. That's a conscious decision, and I think the more we normalise that, the more we speak as we are today, not waiting for that critical moment in our life before we make that decision to take off our mask.
Okay, cool.
I think it's scary.
Oh, hell yeah.
to touch on a story when I would have been 18, I think. So I just finished school, and my pattern was drinking and just being an absolute party animal. If I didn't throw up when I was drinking, I wasn't drinking enough. Yeah. And I'd always either end up naked or in my undies and just the life of the party. Had a great time doing it, but again, that was my mask. It was, I'm the funny guy. I'm gonna have a great time, and if people aren't having a great time, I'm gonna help them have a great time. But when I wasn't around the people, my mask would come off, and I'd just kind of vegetate, and wasn't happy with life. That snowballed into suicidal ideation and self-harm, and then an attempt. That was one of the first ones. But in that time, I detracted from everybody. I didn't want to tell any of my mates or my best mates what was going on. And I didn't want to be a burden in that situation. I didn't want, if I look back at how my mind would operate in the suicidal ideation piece, I thought it was a selfless decision, because then nobody else needs to worry about me. I felt it would be selfish if I kept living, which is, if I think men can only understand what that means if they've experienced some sort of suicidal ideation. But for me, I didn't want to make the call because I don't want to put that pressure on him. I don't want to open up about my stuff, because otherwise my mate will, then now he's got problems, but now I'm going to be one of his problems. I didn't want to be that. So that was the mentality that was a constant pattern, and that's where the lone wolf, I'll do it on my own, and the mates that I was surrounded by were very similar, and we'd all go through our own challenges, and more than likely kind of rock in the corner without anybody else knowing. It was at that time, it felt easier to just hold the mask up rather than take it off. The times that it would come off would be after half a case of beer, and it's 3:30 in the morning. But that's not healing. That's not progressive. That's more of like a vent or a trauma dump or whatever label you want to put on it. So I guess if I look at the solutions of how I work through that, I couldn't talk to the same type of people that I would escape from my emotions with. I had to talk to the people that were out of my circle, that were more of mentors or of some sort of emotional maturity compared to that circle. So for me, it was like the realization of, I can have all of these mates, but they can all play a different part in my life. I'm allowed to go and, at that time, drink with those guys, but I'm not going to talk about my feelings completely and wholly with them. But I'll talk to my coach or the psychologist about those certain things, and being okay with that, and owning that. And that was that's a path that now I can talk to all my circle about most of my stuff going on. But it's like discernment with authenticity. I don't want to go and vent everything that's going on in my life to one person, because that's not their role. Discerning, okay, I'll give 90% of me today, because I need to just hold on to that 10% for the next person that I talk to. Energy is so important, and where that goes, it can really create life and create more energy, and it can also really kind of take it away.
Got a two-part question for you, Slade. With the benefit of hindsight, when do you feel you probably should have gone and sought the advice of a coach or a psychologist? And the second part to that question is, what stopped you doing it earlier? Going back to my point of, we generally hit a crossroad before we make those choices. Yeah. So can you think of a time where it was getting bad and you probably could have taken an earlier path to counselling or a coach?
I think weeks, months before that incident. The thing was, which was really hard, was that I had I'd previously gone to counsellors and therapy, and it didn't suit what I felt like I needed
At the time,
yeah.
Yeah.
Which was really hard. So I had this belief of all therapists, all counsellors are just not going to work, but that because of 2 sessions or 3 sessions.
Yeah.
If I could look at somebody else who's going through something similar now, right? Because I don't want to go back. It's all part of the journey. But for somebody who's in that period of feeling suicidal, using versions of self-harm, of drinking to just not feel, there's many ways you can go about it. Reaching out to somebody who has walked a path that you aspire to be like. Whether it's a therapist, a coach, a mentor, an uncle, your dad's mate's mate, footy coach, whatever that person is, but it's if you like a part of them or part of their life, it's like he's got something about him.
What stops us, do you think, doing that?
Fear of...
Yeah.
Honestly, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but listening to you then relate your story, how big a part do you think shame and guilt play in where you're at that time, around being shameful about how you feel and act, and the guilt associated with that?
I think it's one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and especially different age stages of your life. So, at age 40 or age 50, the shame that you haven't, necessarily achieved what you wanted to achieve, and that could be right across. We'll be talking about the Wheel of Life in one of our education sessions coming up. It could be in any one of those 8 or 12 facets of that life, or we refer to it as the Wheel of Happiness as well. And that could be relationships that, for whatever reason, you rank yourself lowly in your relationships. And you do hear of men in particular that repeat patterns of their behaviour. They don't learn from episodes. What is that learning itself, and how do you change? To your point, seeking out mentors or coaches or the right people in your circle or outside your circle that have achieved. And by the way, again, people listening too, when someone asks you for support, for help, for an ear, for guidance, it's one of the best compliments that you can have.
Absolutely.
And talking about creating happiness in self, 100%, to know that someone else sees you and acknowledges you for who you are, and that could be because you're a kind bloke, or that could be because you're financially independent, or that could be because the way you act as a father to your 2 boys. Case in point, one of the men that I go for a walk with on regular basis. I'm just in admiration of how he, after the work he's done and continues to do, going through a separation and divorce, how he shows up for his 2 young boys. It's just phenomenal. But yet he doesn't see that. So to be able to go, right, that book of life, that chapter, being a dad, what does that look like to 2 young boys, by the way, who have got heaps of energy, and they're sponges. They're just sponging in the moment. They're observing him in his rawest moments with his mates walking, but also in other moments where he's showing up and he's present for his boys, and he's now taking them through gratitudes. When they spend time with him, mate, awesome. To to a spiritual wellness and well-being. If you we spent some time on a Friday night attending a flow motion, session with, a man who just embraces that whole notion of spirituality, in its purest form, and it was awesome being in that space. There are different dimensions to happiness. There are different dimensions to, to how you show up and who you reach out to your point, Slade. And not every person in your life provides you with that 100%, reference point. And by the way, not only in men, but with women as well.
Yeah.
There are some incredible women in my life and in our lives and in the happiness group who, who really do show up for themselves
and
for
men.
their men and for the broader community.
I just want to also highlight something that I'd like your opinions on. So we mentioned shame and guilt, and I think they are huge parts of us not seeking help or being fearful to speak our minds. But the other thing for me, and I don't know if you guys felt something similar, was I guess the stories in my head, the stories that I would tell myself. So for me, I had the whole thing around, well, this is how everyone my age feels. Anyone in a 30-year something odd marriage, show me a happy marriage. Everyone's feeling like this. This is why you get paid the big bucks. So I told myself all the time that I didn't believe life was good. I just believed that everyone was having a similar life. And that, you know what, we were sold a pup. This is what life is. Just get on with it. And so there wasn't a real need for me to go and talk to anyone about it in my head because I was thinking, this is normal. If I'm going to go to one of my mates and said, geez, I'm bloody stressed, of course, dude, you've got to, or he would have been stressed as well. So I'm kind of interested to see those stories in our head that we tell ourselves around normalising the behaviour because we have such a strong belief that whatever we're feeling is the same for everybody else.
I think the what we consume constantly, be it the conversations, be it the social media side of things, be it the food we eat, the music we listen to, all of that will validate or invalidate what's going on inside. Most of the time, with the algorithm of life, the algorithm of social media, it constantly says you're on this path and you'll stay on this path. If you're stressed, the algorithm will feed you, yes, of course you're stressed, and that's okay. Here's some content that validates your stress. The friends who may be colleagues are also dealing with the same stress. It's constantly creating like a new validation. And I believe we've got a choice of like what we can do with that, and that I don't know what the answer is to how to shift that, but it's within ourselves. You can stay in the construct of the world, of your beliefs, of your friend group, or you can take the step out.
Which going back to my earlier point, often doesn't happen until we hit those crossroads.
Yeah.
And so the challenge, I think, is breaking those molds of going, you know what, this isn't what life's about. And saying this isn't normal. This is a challenge that I need to, and then as you say, Slade, and I'm a huge believer in this, is making those choices away from those things that are taking you down that path and towards the person you want to be.
And you can echo the thoughts of the rite of passage and the shifts from childhood to adulthood, from being a boy to being a man. And at what point do you stop, reflect, and if the path isn't right, to make a change? So the whole notion of curiosity, maintaining that curiosity.
How do we know when the path's not right? That's my point.
When your behaviour actually starts to impact other people. Okay, so for example, if your behaviour towards your partner, towards your wife is disrespectful, it's diminishing, your partner's value, you're not present for that individual, etc. So it's a behavioural shift because we cannot see. I reference this all the time, the ABC model, attitude, behaviour, consequences. So attitude, we don't see attitudes, values, etc. What's happening in a person's mind, okay? The only way we see that is through the behaviours they emit. So if you as an individual are behaving, as such that you're depreciating another person's value, okay, that's a start of the the acknowledging, the reflection. What you do with that, hence the consequence, is potentially a third party thing, or it could be a second party, as in yourself, but it is a starting point.
So it's a self-audit to start the process, isn't it?
It has to be, or someone else calls you out.
Or calls you out,
But it comes down to that behaviour, whatever that behaviour is. And again, if we go down the mental health pathway, then when men are demonstrating a shift in that behaviour, be it, polar opposites once again, the aggressiveness, the anger, that venting piece, okay, defecation.
Let's not do that. That happens when you're much older.
Deprivation and the whole piece of your sense of being, okay. Let's call it the angry bubble, and or the shut down, shut off, sad, incredible sad bubble, okay, where you just disassociate yourself from, from life, from family, from kids, whatever it might be, from work. So it's in around those behaviours. And what often happens, and back to the story with the golf with the mates, they didn't see the change in behaviour, or they didn't acknowledge the change in behaviour. So if you're not self-auditing and your people around you, your good friends, family, are not self-auditing as well, or auditing on your behalf, not self-auditing, then where does that lead us in our journey of...
If I look at a previous relationship I was in, I was going through my own mental challenges. She was going through some pretty intense medical challenges. I wasn't present. I was physically there for her. Mentally, I wasn't. I can stay the night at the hospital, but my brain's not there in support. And on the other side, she's not in any right place to be of much support to me in that situation. That's two people, right? If we look at I guess I'm curious. In that situation, I didn't have capacity to self-audit, nor did I want to be honest. I was just in my stuff, working through it. Just surviving. And on the other side, she was literally, physically surviving as well. And neither of each other could give or receive anything except baseline survival needs. If I look at those are the two options in that situation. What can we do? What could somebody do if they're in a similar position where it just feels like both parties or everyone in life is surviving? What can that individual? What's the path that they can take?
It's a great point, because I feel a lot of people are in that exact position where they're codependent, if you like, on needing someone to either call them out on it or provide support, but they're also in that same journey. And whether it's a partner or whether it's a friend group or just I think that's a really valid point. I don't know the answer to it, by the way.
No. I think if I put myself in the position of younger me who was in that situation, and I was listening to this podcast right now, there's three guys that can't give one straight answer. This is the cure to the thing. I would feel really frustrated because it's like, why can't these three knowledgeable dudes just give me the pathway forward? And there's two thoughts with that. It's, for me, I needed to not know the answer to learn and discover the answer, because there's so much beauty in those questions, those big questions. How do I feel more fulfilled? How do I feel more happy? What can I do? The self-discovery was a necessary part of that growth. And then the other side, it sucked and it hurt, and there was a lot of money spent and a lot of late nights and a lot of pain and a lot of pain inside of me and outside, pain projected. How can us three support the audience? And this is hard.
Yeah.
But how can we support somebody who may be going through that? What's a lens that we can help them see through?
It's interesting, Slade. I frustratingly asked our CEO, Julian, why the hell didn't I do this 30 years ago?
Yeah.
And his response was brutal at the time, but I reflected on it, and he simply said, because you weren't ready. And I think that is a really valid point, is that I had got to a point in my life that I had to make the change. I was going to lose family, potentially my life. So I had to make those changes. And so anything that you told me for the 30 years prior to that would have been difficult for me to even believe. And so to go to your point around, someone listening to this and going, well, what is it? I think it's challenging every single current thought that you have that's holding you back, challenging every belief, and we talk about a self-audit, Mo, but auditing life generally. Is this actually what life's about? And if you're not experiencing exactly what you want, then saying, well, why? Yes, I'm stressed, but why? Because we have a choice to stay in those jobs. We have a choice to be in the relationship that we're in. And I think if we boil it down to, and I'm not saying this is easy, by the way, but in the good times, not in the bad times, but in the good times, going, you know what? Am I getting absolutely everything that I want out of life? Whatever that means, going back to the happiness wheel, ticking all those boxes.
Absolutely.
And saying, am I around, or a 7, 8, 9 in almost all of these 10, 12 factors? And then if you're not, then saying why? And then again, in good times, saying, what could I modify, either thoughts, beliefs, values? What could I change that would make that different? And I've made that sound really simple, but it's such a challenge.
So to add to that, so 2 parts once again. Make it 3 parts. So the first part is the Wheel of Life. So we've referenced it. It's an amazing coaching tool that we use to support men, women,
everybody,
non-gender specific, broad community. Okay, and we'll share it through this podcast, and the how to utilise the tool. And then with that, then the reflection on. But within that, it's putting the C back into this word, and that's commitment. So if you go through this exercise of education, awareness, self-auditing, using a tool like this, which is a powerful tool, and you look at that tool and you analyse it, and it's not round, because that's what a wheel should look like. If you throw it down a slope, it should just keep rolling down that slope. Okay, but if every 4th or 5th it's clunky or it's stuck, okay, because that part of the wheel you're just not committing to change or increasing from 0 to 10, from 0 to maximum, which is what the wheel's all about. And by the way, as you go through this exercise, if it's if all your wheel elements are low, that's okay. It's still round. So you've got a bit of a balance happening there. It's about 1 or 2 things in particular. If they are your sole focus to the situation, Slade, you made reference beforehand of not being present for your partner previously, during that situation, okay, well, what can you do to address that? So putting the C back into commitment. Again, in the workshops that we run, we generally finish off by saying, do the following 3, okay? And it's all about behaviour. 1 step at a time, 1 thought at a time, okay? 1 action at a time. So the 3 things that we close out our Happiness Co workshops are, Very straightforward, centered around behaviours. First thing is, what one behaviour, and it could be from that wheel of life, that you are going to change, as in remove. What's one behaviour? Didn't say attitude, thoughts, feelings, emotions. One behaviour, one doing thing that you're gonna stop doing. Number 2, what one behaviour, now that you've taken out a behaviour, so you've got space on that wheel, okay, in your energy, etc., that you can now add to it. Because now you've got the space. And it's not all about the sad and the unhappy and, you know, the darker side of, and the negative side of life, and that wheel. Well, one behaviour that you do so well that you want to amplify. Okay, and I use that term all the time here at the Crow. You know, it's amplifying stuff that you do well. And it might be that every day, starting with, you know, that you're thinking about someone, that you send them a message. Some would say it's a gratitude piece. Okay? I'm grateful for you because, by the way, this is how you make me feel. Gratitude has to come from the heart. And this is part of a series of podcasts, Leadership Conversations from the Heart. So, one thing that you can do on a daily basis, and if that one thing shifts the focus from you and on yourself to others, then you're on a pathway. That's it.
That's it. Simple. Done.
I think those are both really great answers for somebody who may be experiencing some sort of challenge in any area of life.
And you know what? I know this sounds a little trite, and Mo's touched on it. You know, we spent a week up in Broome with the kids up in the Broome High School, and overwhelmingly the point that I made over and over again is kindness has to be the biggest behaviour that we should adopt and endorse. But in saying that, it's not, first of all, it's kindness to yourself. Being kind to you then to others, because it doesn't matter where you are in life, whether you're self-auditing, doing the wheel of happiness, all of those things, you can put yourself down, you can say you're not good enough, all the not enoughnesses. In starting this process, I think the first behaviour change is just being kind to yourself first.
Cool. So what does that look like?
Well, it's interesting, because I've always rallied around or against the whole notion of loving yourself, because I saw it as an emotion. And I still feel it's icky, but I changed loving yourself to an action-based model.
Okay.
So thinking about how do you show love to the people around you? And so it could be, it's kind of like the love languages, Mo. You know, there's service, there's gifts, there's tolerance, there's all of these things that you do, those behaviours that you're talking about, that show and demonstrate love to someone else. And so if you look at it as an action base, then you can do those same things to you. You can give yourself gifts, you can give yourself time, you can be more tolerant of your own mistakes. You can do acts of service to yourself. You can have the cheerleader in your mind telling you what a good job you've done after all of those things, celebrating successes. And when I view it in that context, I feel really comfortable about loving myself by action, not through emotion.
Cool.
And that's why I talk about kindness in the same way.
Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. What about yourself, Slade?
I've been very similar with kindness. To love myself is it's a bit fluffy, to be honest. I honestly looked at more about how can I make progress within myself. If I want to do more stuff tomorrow, I need to sleep earlier today. That's a kind action. If I want to be disciplined in the gym, I also need to be disciplined with rest. If I want to have my quality time on my own, just nutting out work, I also need quality time with others. It goes back to nurturing. It's like, how can I, if I look at myself from an outsider's perspective, how can Slade be best supported? How can he be nurtured and not babied, but nurtured? What does he need? Okay, he needs food. He needs to sleep. He needs a sense of purpose. He needs solid connections. He needs to hit the gym. What are the things? And that sense of action-based nurturing, action-based kindness, I feel like it's a man-brain thing in general. What do I do with it? It's all great and well to know about the things. Of course I got to be kind because Slade and Barry and Mo says so. But what do I do with that?
Yeah.
So the doing, the behaviours, really, really simple things, implementing those for me have been game changer.
Cool.
And I use a calendar.
You're very systems analytical and
Oh yeah,
the whole thing.
I got a specky brain.
That's cool. So if again, listeners have got wired accordingly like that, it's a great way. And we talk about, again, the wheel of life and goal attainment. Okay, things that at a later stage of life you look back and you think, oh, I've attained all this, but how did you attain that? So
that's it.
To your point of your spreadsheet.
I find it, same thing with my budgeting. I know probably maybe to the dollar or the $5 what's come in and out for every financial year, right? And the intention with that is it's a bit of fun. I like numbers and it hurts my feelings sometimes looking at the money that I spend. But what I measure is what I can manage, right? Money I can measure, then I can also manage it. The tasks I do through the day, I can measure the KPIs, the success, then I can manage. But what's really hard with an analytic brain is I can't measure emotions. You can't put them on a graph. There's no KPIs with emotions, right? So intuition for me, that's a constant learning. But what I find myself measuring is how do I feel out of like 1 to 10? Like simple. I feel like a 3 today. I cannot be bothered to do anything on my calendar. So what do I need to just get back to like a 5 or a 6, like baseline? Or maybe I need to call Barry or Mo.
Correct.
Maybe I need to just hit the gym. Yep. Maybe I do need to just chuck on Netflix for the next 3 hours and be a bit of a vegetable. But I'll make that call this afternoon, and I got to do that.
So is it fair to say that you excel through Excel? Yes.
Yeah, we could say that. Yeah.
Oh jeez.
I think everybody. I look at my life a bit from like it's a bit too systemized. So whether somebody is very spontaneous, but values a bit of structure, and then for myself, I used to be very structured and then very spontaneous, and now I've kind of found a middle ground with it.
And that whole piece around human needs and understanding what our human needs are. I mean, I'm listening to you, Slade, and just kind of cringing the whole fact that it's also planned and that's not critical of you. It's just it wouldn't work in my brain. And I think understanding that and what our human needs are. So I need lots of variety for me. And so, it goes back to that self-audit piece, looking at yourself and saying, who am I really deep down? Who am I? What do I want from life? What are the things that hurt me? What are the things that make me happy? Changing behaviours, Mo, as you said, getting rid of one, putting one in. It really is a reflection piece, isn't it? And I've got to say, sometimes when we look inside, what we see is not always pretty. And I think we need to be prepared for that and to look at the ugly side of ourselves and be honest and go, that bloke staring me at the mirror when I'm having a shave or whatever, there's bits to him I don't like and I need to change those.
Love that, Baz, because that then at the heart of that is the kindness piece.
Yeah.
Okay, self first, selfish kindness, but also being aware that looking into the mirror, that if that picture is 75-80%, and it's ways on the side of joyful and kindness and being the best person that you can be, well, like hell yeah, well done.
Absolutely.
Alrighty, but if it's in a deficit, then to your point of self-auditing, absolutely, what can I do just to shift that? And I go back to the wheel of life. That if you're sitting at 1 or 2 on that wheel of 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, then okay, what is one of those things, those behaviours that I can do differently?
Yeah.
Okay, and that starts with you, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely does.
So if something happens in the morning and to your point, Slade, I'm feeling a bit low on that battery, okay, be kind to yourself. What can I do to shift that, to go from 1, 2, 3, 0 up a bit higher?
Yep.
So the self-reflection, self-auditing, using a tool like the Wheel of Happiness, and you can go back to it on a weekly, monthly. If you're structured and you're working towards goal and goal attainment, 100%. Because the financial piece, okay, to your point of spending, well, my friend, you've got to earn to spend. That's it. To then balance that, not to spend, to be in deficit. And the same thing, if you're constantly spending your energy on someone else, okay, and filling that other person's cup, and you're depleting yourself, well then that's an issue in itself, isn't it?
And to go back to your very, very first point, Mo, what do men need to do or why aren't they doing it? We've never been taught it. We've never been given those skills to do that self-audit. We've never been given... and this is not a blame game, it's just not been in the DNA of men to do those self-audits. And it's interesting because there's 40 years probably between, God, that sounds so much, 40 years between Slade and I. And yet Slade is going through a very similar, mental piece. Things haven't changed a lot in 40 odd years.
Correct.
And that's disappointing. So our challenge is to make sure that Slade's kids, my grandkids, are taught these skills of self-reflection, being honest with themselves and being okay to be not okay.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Modelling
The behaviours,
the behaviours. And that's what we ask of good men in our society.
Yeah.
To model those behaviours of kindness as a start point, to literally open the door for someone else, okay? To pick someone up if they've fallen on the ground.
Be kind.
Not to step back, but to step in, step up. To be present for men who may be struggling. To park self for that moment. To be genuine, to be able to support that individual. And I suppose in closing, because we do need to close.
It's only 2 hours. So
to your point previously of that one tip that you want to share with an individual who's listening and going, okay, a lot of good conversation there, but what is the now doing piece? Okay, from what we've just said, what we've just spoken about.
Okay.
On notice, who would like to take us?
Okay, I'll start off
down the pathway.
So I think the greatest tip that I could give is to take action when you want to, not when you have to, and to be comfortable in being uncomfortable in doing that process, and just doing that full audit of everything in your life. Challenge all the beliefs, all the thoughts you have, and really re-examine what makes you happy, and then pursue that.
Cool.
An audit of your life might sound scary,
Sure.
but if you ask yourself, who are you? Or who am I? Who do I want to be? And what am I willing to do to achieve that? Answer those unapologetically. Answer them with your younger self in mind. What did little me need in those times of strife, and take action on those answers unapologetically. Again, if you walk this earth unapologetically with your mask off, there's going to be a few people that are going to judge that, but I can tell you the majority will be attracted to that energy
Love that.
By fulfilling yourself and being kind to yourself, the kindness spreads to others.
Cool. Love the reflection of the younger self, what you'd say to younger self. For me, it's about looking at all those opportunities that face you and embracing those opportunities to be able to live a life which you can create, to be curious within that life, to listen, to reflect on what you experience on a daily basis, and ultimately to be kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
That's Mo the Spirit Level signing off.
And we burst into "Don't worry, be happy."
That will be the theme song for this podcast.
Oh,
It was on the radio this morning.
we can add that on. Thank you
Right.
for your time and to be able to go there with the team. We work together, but we also there's more to it than just the work.
Yeah.
So it means a lot to be able to go deep like this in a space that we do call a workplace.
Absolutely.
It's rare.
Incredibly rare.
More than you know.
Incredibly rare.
So thank you guys.
No, thank
I'm very
you.
grateful.
It's very good.